It is a canal of breathtaking grandeur, a waterway that is the longest in the world of its kind by far. It is the Grand Canal of China, and in this episode we'll feature that Grand Canal as it runs through the Chinese province of Jiangsu. Already in the last episode we've explored the water towns of Jiangsu, the Venice of China, with gondolas alive with romantic songs. This is the birthplace of Chinese opera. Silk is big, having been woven here for centuries, while we've experienced classic gardens, traditional garments and masterful performances. In this episode, the Grand Canal, an engineering marvel on the scale of the Great Wall of China. Another set of terracotta warriors, the Terracotta Army of the Han Dynasty. The wall city of Nanjing. And on the menu, a Nanjing specialty, duck. And craving for crayfish. Off now to the Grand Canal as it runs through Jiangsu province. Unfortunately, I can't go. I'm locked down here in Australia, but I am represented by a very capable Aussie TV producer, Amy Lyons. Amy, just how impressive is that Grand Canal?
It is very impressive, Greg. I'm here in Jiangsu province. I'm on the banks of the Grand Canal itself, and it's an engineering marvel on the scale of the Great Wall of China because it's man-made. It's the largest canal in the world, 1,794 kilometres long. It is huge, and it was very, very important in the development of China.
Aiming at almost 1,800 kilometres in length, this is both a very long and historic waterway.
Yes, so it is indeed, and it's really ahead of its time as well. The construction on this Grand Canal actually started in the 5th century BCE, so it's been here for a while.
Right, so at least two major rivers, the Yangtze and Yellow rivers.
So the Grand Canal here was super important because in China there are many rivers that flow from west to east, but actually no main waterways that go from the south to the north. And it was very important to connect those two regions of the south and the north because those were the two most densely populated regions in China. And it was a way to transport cargo and goods and communicate. So a lot of cultural exchange and a lot of trade happened on this Grand Canal right here.
Amy, very timely you're there because the canal now has its own brand new museum.
Yeah, so behind me here we actually have the China Grand Canal Museum. It's newly opened. It opened in July of this year. We're going to go check it out. So I know it looks like we're in this beautiful ancient street right now, but this is actually a museum. This is China's Grand Canal Museum, and here you can experience everything to do with the Grand Canal. The history of it as a trading place, how it influenced China. You can see little shops that have been set up here to mimic what it looked like back in the day on some of these cities along the Grand Canal.
The Grand Canal may have a history of 25 centuries, but the museum dedicated to it has the very latest in futuristic displays. Visitors can enjoy a digital trip through time, taking a simulated trip along the canal. It's a totally immersive experience through 11 enormous exhibition halls, reflecting the many cultural changes that have evolved over the centuries.
Okay, so this here is a map of the Grand Canal. It starts all the way in the south here at Ningbo, a very strong rice production area here in the south, and then it heads all the way to the north of China to Beijing. So a lot of the goods that were produced in the south were taken to the north. And as for what we're focusing on this episode, it's this part here in Jiangsu province.
Showing us around today is Jiangsu senior guide Mark's son.
The southern part of China always be the most richest part. We produce many different things.
Yeah.
That's why they need a canal to connect north and south to support the capital. Because by time, most of the capital were in northern of China.
Mark explains that the canal is still being used today.
Yeah, still in use, but not the full section. just the part between Zhejiang and Shandong, about 900 kilometers.
All along the Grand Canal, there are many, many places to view this historic waterway, such as Suzhou's 10 Views of the Canal, Yangzhou's Sanwan Cultural Park, and Wushi's Jiangnan Water Alley. What we're discovering is just how important water is to the province of Jiangsu. Just how important? Well, let's head off to the capital, Nanjing.
Yeah, so the city of Nanjing here has a 2,500-year history. It's also been recognized as one of the most historically important cities in China and also recognized as one of the 4 great ancient capitals of China alongside Beijing, Xi'an and Luoyang. So it's a very important place.
And Amy, that's the Yangtze River behind you.
Yes, it's the longest river in Asia. It also runs from west to east, so that's the way it flows. But just downstream of the Yangtze River, we've also got the Grand Canal, which links the north with the south. So it means that Nanjing is really strategically placed.
Well, there's certainly plenty to explore there in Nanjing, Amy.
Yes, indeed. I'm so excited to explore the city. It's one of my favorite places. It's got great food, the people are super friendly, and it's got such an intensely interesting history. So I'm excited to explore it.
One of Nanjing's outstanding features is a huge wall that circles the city. The city wall of Nanjing was constructed 600 years ago by a workforce of 200,000 labourers.
We are literally walking on history right now. This is the old Nanjing City Wall. It was built in the 1300s to protect the founding capital of the Ming Dynasty. And a couple of things you'll find interesting about this wall is that firstly, the bricks are all kind of different colours, and that's because it came from 7 different provinces all along the Yangtze River, and then the bricks were transported here. The second thing is that every single brick that went into building it is inscribed. It's inscribed with the brick builder's name, the overseer's name and rank, the date, and sometimes where the brick was from. And it was done as a quality assurance. And, you know, if you ask me, they did a pretty good job because the wall is still here 600 years later.
Yeah. Below these historic walls, there's a food specialty that's become legendary there in Nanjing, duck.
Nanjing is a city that loves its duck. There's actually a saying that no duck can leave Nanjing alive. Every year, this city eats 100 million ducks. We're here actually at what's called a Yazdian, a duck shop, and they sell all manner of duck. Salted duck, roast duck, duck heads, duck hearts, duck gizzards. They do not waste any part of the duck here. Every part of the duck is enjoyed. So we're gonna go check it out. So I'm lining up to get my duck now. I'm gonna order myself some salted duck as well as some roast duck. So excited. It smells amazing. The smell coming out of this shop is just, wow. Okay, so I've got my salted duck here, I've got my roast duck here, and they've added, look at this. So they've also added a bag of juice. So one of the features of Nanjing roast duck is its juice. It's very juicy, so we're gonna add that together. But you know, let's go find a place to eat this. I actually have the perfect place in mind. Come with me. This is so cool. I cannot think of a more appropriate place to eat our duck than on a duck boat in the middle of the duck capital of China. This is so cool. So right now we're on Xuanwu Lake. It is like one of the signature, the most representative places of Nanjing. It's a massive lake in the middle of the city center. Although being on this lake, you wouldn't feel like you're in the middle of a city. It's very, very peaceful. You've got the old city wall behind me here, contrasted against the Zifeng Tower, the newest skyscraper of Nanjing. It's gorgeous. Okay, time to get stuck into our duck. We're gonna start with our salted duck here. I know it may look a bit on the plain side, but do not let the look fool you because this is full of flavor, absolutely full of flavor. So delicious. Nanjing salted duck. 40 million ducks a year go into making this. Yummy.
That evening, the waterways of Nanjing light up. Taking a cruise by night along one of the Yangtze's tributaries allows us to experience another glamorous side of a city that has been honoured by so many poets and artists. It's a fitting farewell to Nanjing as we prepare to travel further along the Grand Canal of China. Travelling further along the Grand Canal to the city of Yangzhou.
So yes, Greg, I am here on the banks of the Grand Canal. I'm here in Yangzhou, a city whose identity is tied inextricably to the canal itself.
Among the many foreigners who play an influential role in Yangzhou's development was Marco Polo.
He actually served as mayor of Yangzhou for 3 or 4 years, and he wrote a lot about Yangzhou in his writings about his time here and about the importance of Yangzhou as a place of trade. And Marco Polo wasn't the only foreigner that came here to Yangzhou. There were a lot of foreign influences that came through Yangzhou because of this Grand Canal. So it sort of saw a lot of outside influences, which made the city very modern, cosmopolitan, and inclusive, I would say. So his influence definitely still persists here to this day.
Marco Polo's time in Yangzhou has been marked by a museum in his honour. It's a building full of Marco Polo memorabilia, detailing his years as mayor, ambassador and governor here in Yangzhou back in the 13th century, when the Venetian merchant travelled through Asia along the Silk Road. All an acknowledgement of just how powerful China was at that time. There's also an historic street that starts right here.
Starting from here, right on the banks of the Grand Canal, we have Dongguan Street, which stretches all the way from the Grand Canal to the city centre. So back in the day, it was a very important street linking the Grand Canal with the city centre of Yangzhou, and a lot of trade, business activity happened on that street. And to this day, you can still experience a lot of the traditional culture and history of Yangzhou.
The street is also famous for its cuisine.
One of the things you must experience when you come to Yangzhou is Wuyan cuisine. So it's one of the great cuisines of China, and Yangzhou is recognised to be the birthplace, the cradle of Wuyan cuisine.
What is outstanding is the food's preparation. The chef has spent some 8 years training to cut so precisely. It looks like he's making 1,000 cuts to this tofu for a very tasty dish.
It is called sliced bean curd, and it features tiny slices of bean curd that look almost like vermicelli noodles. It's so finely made.
There's also a world-famous dish that was created right here, fried rice.
There is literally a science to fried rice here in Yangzhou, and I'm so excited to try Yangzhou fried rice in Yangzhou itself. Let's do this.
Time then to taste all this freshly prepared cuisine.
Look at that. So good. Like, what's not to love about fried rice?
Indeed. Fried rice is not the only specialty dish here. There are many other tasty treats, such as lion's head, a yummy meatball dish, and dim sum, a hearty collection of dumplings. It's not only food dishes that have put Yangzhou on the map. There's also products made here with red lacquer.
Yes, so this lacquerware, it's made from sap from a tree, which is then put onto a plank of wood, and it's then carved. So it's carved in sections, in layers. So there are a lot of people that are involved in every step of the process. There are people that design and draw the pattern that's going to be used. There are people that specifically do the carving. There are people that finish it, and it's so incredibly detailed. When you get up close and personal with this red lacquerware, the details are just incredible, and it's no wonder it takes 4 or 5 years to finish a single piece. It's definitely a work of art. It served a decorative function for sure, definitely a status symbol to have such an expensive piece of lacquerware on your wall. You could use this lacquerware for furniture, for bowls, for cutlery. It had a practical purpose as well.
Day's End sees a magnificent sunset across the waters of Jiangzhou. We're on the slender West Lake, narrow but long, 4 kilometres long to be exact, but only 100 metres wide. The perfect setting for a stylish show of lights and water. Cascades of water sprayed sky high, and illuminated by powerful beams of coloured light. We're moving further along the Grand Canal in the province of Jiangsu to the city of Wuyan.
Yes, Wuyan here is a very important place along the Grand Canal. It's recognized as one of the 4 major metropolises, along with Yangzhou, Suzhou, and Hangzhou. So back in the day, this was the grain transport hub of China, which is very important because the most fertile rice-producing regions were all in the south of China. But there was a big demand for this grain in the north. So a lot of this grain had to come through Wuyan and brought in a lot of prosperity.
Amy, one of China's greatest delicacies, is caught right here.
These days, Wuyan isn't known for its grain, it's known for its xiaolongxia, its crayfish.
The waterway Amy is on breeds hundreds of thousands of crayfish. The cray fishermen she's surrounded by simply need to drop a net in and haul it back out loaded with crayfish.
Wow. Oh my God, so many. Check out how many crayfish we have here. Oh my gosh. They are absolutely massive. Well, they can get a lot bigger, but they are at their juiciest and most ripe at 3 months old. So these xiaolongxia here, they're 3 months old, but if you were to grow them to 7 months, they would be bigger, but they wouldn't be as tasty. But on the scale of other xiaolongxia in China, these are very big for a 3-month-old xiaolongxia. You can see here. Yeah, they're plump and they're really good quality, and you can tell because their bellies are white. So this is good stuff here. It is very, very lucrative. Actually, Xuyi makes over $300 million a year trading these xiaolongxia, and in total about 100,000 tons a year are produced.
Such a juicy catch. Off then to Wuyan's top restaurant for a crayfish banquet.
Oh my goodness, so this is the biggest plate of food I think I've ever seen in my life. We have what looks like 4 or 5 different flavors of xiaolongxia on this table here. And we've got this smoke going everywhere. Can you see me? Wow, would you check out this basin of food? We have so many different flavors of xiaolongxia here. And I've had xiaolongxia before, but definitely not as much as my friend Emma here. So she's here to teach me how to best open it. So there are many different flavors of xiaolongxia that you can get, but here in Xuyi, they're famous for one in particular, which is 13 spices. And we just saw it being made in the back kitchen, and oh my goodness, the smells coming out of that kitchen were amazing, as he put so many different kinds of spices and herbs into the dish. So Xuyi crayfish are known for being very juicy. Okay.
Yeah, very cute.
Oh, wow, that texture is fantastic. Not too hard, not too soft. It's got a bounciness about it. So juicy, so flavorful. Oh, and another one. So fun fact, 30 pounds of xiaolongxia will give you 10 pounds of meat. So it's got a large bit of shell here, and in the end, this is what you actually eat.
That evening, Wuyan's waterways light up as we head for one of the river system's many locks.
We are here on the Liyuan River. It's the part of the Grand Canal that runs through Wuyan here. This section of the Grand Canal actually has over 2,000 years of history, and you can definitely still experience those relics of the past. We are just passing the most beautiful pagoda over here. And back in the day, this section of the Grand Canal saw a lot of trade, a lot of activity, which caused this city here to be very, very prosperous and a very important city along the Grand Canal. So I'm just enjoying this right now. We are on a boat cruise. We're experiencing the night lights of Wuyan. It's so beautiful.
The waterways of Wuyan, entree to our final destination here on the Grand Canal in Jiangsu province. We're travelling still further north on the Grand Canal, crossing a lake now, Lake Leomo, and this leads us to an historic town. Amy, you're on the heart of that historic town.
I am indeed. So this is Wuyan Ancient Village. It has over 1,400 years of history in a city that has over 2,500 years of history. So it's just history, history, history when it comes to where we are right now.
So Amy, this town is more like a museum. No people actually live there?
Yep, that's correct. You don't have any locals living here anymore.
Over the centuries, Wuyan became very prosperous, with almost 400 prominent buildings remaining. Among the skills perfected here, pottery.
And actually the name you can see behind me here actually translates to Pottery Town. And the pottery that was made here was used for soy sauce bottles and liquor. And the reason why Wuyan Ancient Town was so famous for their pottery is that there is a lot of water around here. A lot of canals, a lot of lakes, and that also means a lot of mud. And it so happened to be that the mud found at the bottom of these canals were very good for making potteries.
Also still made here is wine. It's known as mung bean wine because its colour is similar to the bean soup, and it's said to be incredibly good for your health.
Yep, I can definitely taste that has 42% alcohol. Wow, that's strong.
One of China's most influential dynasties was the Han Dynasty. They ruled for 4 centuries from 202 BC, and they started right around here in Suzhou. Isn't that right, Amy?
Yes, that's right, Greg. So here in Yangzhou, it's actually the birthplace of the Han Dynasty some 2,200 years ago. So Liu Bang, which is the first emperor of the Han Dynasty, was born here in Yangzhou, so it can be considered the birthplace of Han culture.
Okay, so that Han Dynasty was considered to be the golden age of Chinese history, and it's celebrated every year with a festival.
So since we're here in the birthplace of Han culture, I thought I would wear the costume of the Han people. So this is known as Hanfu, which literally means Han clothing.
Daytime sees colourful street performances in honour of the Han, the second great imperial dynasty of China. The Han were a people who adopted a Confucian ideology, emphasising moderation, piety and virtue. One of the stunning creations of the Han Dynasty was a terracotta army.
It was a big surprise when they found in 1980 another set of terracotta warriors here in Yangzhou. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the terracotta warriors of Xi'an. They're very, very famous, but they have a lot of differences to the terracotta warriors in Xi'an. They don't have as many fine details in their facial features. They were made using one mold, so a lot of them look very similar.
They're smaller than the more famous terracotta warriors of Xi'an, but no less impressive. Almost 5,000 warriors and horses filling 6 pits.
Okay, so we have a Xi'an terracotta warrior here, and we have some Suzhou terracotta warriors here. Can you talk us through some of the differences?
It's very clear that the one from Xi'an is much taller.
So true.
Normally 1.7 meter tall.
Yeah.
But the one from Suzhou is much smaller.
Yeah.
It's normally 50 centimeter.
As well as the terracotta army, there's a series of tombs, many with inscriptions.
Yes, that's right. So here in Yangzhou, there are actually 300 to 400 tombs that have been found from the Han Dynasty. But out of those other tombs, there have been a lot of inscriptions, stone inscriptions that have been found. And these are super important because it provides a real insight into everyday life back in the Han Dynasty that we don't have for many other dynasties. So we can get a really strong idea of what life was like back then. Every aspect of daily life is portrayed in these stone inscriptions. So as a result, we know a lot about what life was like back in the Han Dynasty. So what we see here is really quite fascinating. These are inscriptions in stone over 2,000 years old, and these are words from the king himself. It basically says, "Don't enter my tomb, there are no valuables inside." So this was to encourage anyone not to enter his tomb. It blows me away that I can read something that was written over 2,000 years ago. Another aspect of daily life we can glean from these stone inscriptions is cooking customs and eating customs. This depicts 3 stages of the cooking and eating process. Down here, we can see the guests arriving. On the second stage here, we can see the cooking process in action, as well as some typical cutlery used at the time. And this stage here is where it gets very interesting because we can actually see barbecuing skewers depicted. And from this inscription here, they can claim that Yangzhou is the birthplace of barbecue.
That evening, the Han celebrations come to a climax. an evening of performances and light shows celebrating the Han Dynasty, a dynasty whose influence is still felt in China today, 20 centuries later. And that ends our trip down the Grand Canal in Jiangsu province. It's farewell from me and farewell from Amy Lyons, our Australian presenter there in China.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Greg. It's been an absolute pleasure. 谢谢你们，我这几天在江苏玩得很开心，下次见，拜拜。